Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Talking Shit About with me, Elizabeth, and of course, Marty the dog. That nice beat we have in the background is my fiance breaking rocks. This is, like I said, episode 23, where I brought in two of my best friends in the world, Cassie and Krista, to talk shit about high school. This show comes out the first Friday of each month, and I bring on, like in this case, people to talk shit about things that they hate. Sometimes it's things that we love, but that we want to critique a little bit because we always want to make the world a better place, right? As mentioned earlier, we're going to talk shit about high school. If you had a good time in high school, then you're probably a sociopath. And also, I don't know if you'll get anything out of this episode, but if you're like me and you had a rough time in high school, then you'll probably relate to this episode pretty well. And without further ado, let's go ahead and talk some shit. You alright?
Yeah, it scared me. Oh, okay, we're good.
Okay. Welcome, gals, to Talking Shit About. This will mean that 4 of my 6 bridesmaids have been on the show. I want to try to get everybody on the show before the wedding. I think it'd be sick. But I am
You
here.
can totally do it.
Yeah. With my dear friends, Cassie and Krista. And we went to middle school, high school together at a school we're going to call LB. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and thanks for coming on last minute. I'm excited to have the both of you here because you're like, I would take either of you by yourselves, but together,
We are one.
powerhouse of joy.
Yeah, it's
You
like
are
our
one.
own. We're our own entity, separate of ourselves.
Casta.
So let's start out with Cassie. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, I guess I am 29, and I currently am in Richmond, Virginia. I am very outdoorsy, like a happy little natured hippie child. And I have a boring day job that's like environmental science stuff. But for my fun job that it's really a passion project, but I'm starting to keep building it up is Empower Boudoir. So I just launched my own boudoir photography business that's hella inclusive and it's based in nature. So that's been fun. Also, mother of 3 pets, 2 dogs and a cat. So apologies in advance if chaos ensues and they start to get riled up. So
Great. You did great, especially for
Thanks.
like on the fly. Yeah.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah. All right, Krista, you're up.
I am Krista, and I am remarkably unexciting. I am into anything dark and spooky and scary, and also a lot of fun. I have a great personality, so. But yeah, I work from home. I am a homebody, and I'm also very excited to be here.
Yes. Welcome.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said all things dark and spooky because that like also further captures our relationship too, because it's all very like moon, sun,
yin, yang, this and that.
Yeah.
Very excited.
All right, I got an opener for you, and you guys can go in whatever order, whoever wants to go first. What would high school you think of where you're at now? Like, would you expect it? Is it kind of, you're like, yeah, that sounds about right? Or would you be like, mind blown?
High school me would be shocked that I was living in a city, even though Richmond it's a really small, lovely, very like manageable city. I thought for sure that I would just be like out in the country somewhere. And I never really had a strong idea of what I was going to be doing career-wise. Photographer like would never have been on the table. I was definitely a creative kid, but then like moving into middle school, high school age, that sort of like fizzled out a bit. So that would be really surprising. But I did, speaking of high school, in that remember what we had to do that thing where it was like take a bazillion question quiz and we'll tell you what career you're going to have
Hmm.
someday. Mine was environmental science and I was like, yeah, right. That sounds so boring, but here I am.
Ta-da.
so so no, I would be like a little surprised, but like pleasantly surprised. I'd be really excited, I think, about where I was at in my life.
Yeah. If I went back in time and talked to myself and told myself everything that was going on, I'd be like, well, what the hell happened? I had a plan and everything. Like, I feel like nothing has gone to plan, which is actually fine. You know, everything works out okay. But yeah, like I got into college early. That was a quick trip, moving around jobs and things like that. So I would probably be very surprised to hear about how things are going, but everything's fine. It all works out.
Yeah, I never had a plan growing up. I was just always kind of like in survival mode of just like, just got to get through high school, just got to get through college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I wanted to be a teacher, but I recently did a substitute. I substituted for like a whole day and I was like in front of like 30 teenagers and I was like, wow, I'm fucking miserable. That's right. I forget. I hate talking in front of people and like all these teenagers that are just like on their fucking phones and won't get off of their phones. And I'm
They
trying to
scare
be
the living
nice.
shit out of you. They really
Yeah. Oh my
do.
God. It was horrible. So yeah, I'm really glad I didn't go into that profession. But
Yeah.
I think I'd be surprised at all the shit I got through, but like I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Like I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think I would have like expected it. Because like I said, up until recently, like somebody asked me, "What's your 10-year plan?" And I was like, I literally never think that far in advance, especially since the pandemic, because things just go to
Mm,
shit.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I was like, fuck, I don't know. So I've been thinking about it lately, and that's when I realized the survival mode thing. And I don't know about you guys, but I always have stress dreams about high school. Do you?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I get
Yes.
thrown back in there against my will all the time.
Yeah. I'm always like an adult and I have to go back and finish. And so I'm like a grown ass woman with all these like children.
Yeah. I had that almost that exact dream a few weeks ago. I was my like current age, but had to go back to LB and like there was a paper that I forgot to turn in or I had to like take one more test and I was like, good God, it was horrible. And that place is so vividly stamped in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't know if I guess you kind of like touched on it already, but just for the listeners to understand further, this was a sub school, so or no, not sub school. What is it called? Secondary school. So it was a combination of middle school and high school, and it was freaking enormous.
Hmm.
There were literally like what 4,000 people in this
Yeah.
building, 4 or 5,000 people. It was massive, and so we spent 6 years of our lives there having to navigate a very overwhelming place. So I could honestly go back in there and like walk it blindfolded because
Hmm.
it's just so imprinted in my brain.
I'm like picturing it right now as you're
I
Yep.
saying
know.
all of this.
Like
Hmm.
walking down the halls in my
Yeah.
mind right now. It's
Yeah.
See, I feel like this is a really good segue into like the worst things about our school. Like the population, especially for an introvert that doesn't like crowds or like people touching them, like walking the hallways was always the worst. And people
Hmm.
would never walk on the fucking right hand side, and you'd have people coming
Mhm.
at you, and it's like, why am I the one that has to dodge everybody? But as I got into college, I realized you can just keep walking and people will like bump into you, but you just keep going. Or some people will
Yep.
get out of your way. But yeah, and you couldn't like walk outside of the building. Like, 'cause I
Nope.
used to do that in middle school and I would get in trouble. So you're physically stuck in this building with like no windows for how
Yeah.
many hours a day? And
Yeah.
yeah, it was brutal. That's probably like my personal least favorite thing.
Yeah, I wrote down the same thing. the first thing I put down was crowds. Like we had over 600 people graduating in our class, and I remember being at graduation, seeing people in caps and gowns, being like, "Who the fuck is that?" Like I've never seen that person before in my life.
Yep.
Like
Yes.
people everywhere,
Hmm.
people running out of nowhere. It's terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah. I wrote down like the first thing that I thought of was the early start because I'm not a morning person, and no downtime and just no like refuge anywhere in the school. And I don't think that's like specific to our school. It definitely was way more intense because it was such a massive place with so many freaking people in it. But if we had what 7 minutes between classes,
If
I
that.
think, to get, and like sometimes your class would be on the opposite end of the building where if you were going at like a brisk pace, it would take you almost 5 minutes to walk the whole thing. I wish we had like, God, we should have looked up dimensions or something. Give me a blueprint to
I
see
know.
how
I
far we actually had to walk. If Fitbits had been a thing like back in the day, Jesus Christ, we would have all gotten our
Fucking
steps
quarter
in.
mile at least. Jesus.
that school is a half a mile long, and it's
Fuck.
one big long, like it's not like it's just a line straight down 2 floors.
Yep.
Just
Mhm.
ridiculous.
And a pool on the roof.
Of course.
Does anyone, real quick, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of tangents, but like I just have to start with one. Did you ever know anyone that actually got on, like made it onto the roof? Because I feel like that's always a thing where people are trying to get up on the roof
I
of
don't
like
think
Not
of
that
the
I
so.
high
know
school.
of.
Okay.
I know people, I remember seeing people like, fucking morons trying to like get windows open, like they were able to do that.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mostly saw people jumping off of stuff instead of going upwards.
Yeah,
Jumping off the stairs, jumping off the vending machines,
that's true.
animals.
Uh-huh. Animals. It's
You
true.
fucking
Like
lock
that's
a bunch of monkeys in a building. Like, what do you expect
yeah.
is gonna happen?
Honestly, and literally locked. Literally locked. That was another thing I was thinking back on how crazy that was that we were like you couldn't, it's not like you saying you couldn't walk outside to get somewhere else in the building. That's not an exaggeration because there were literal like guards that
Yes.
were like you cannot leave. And if you did, I guess like the punishment or how they would like call you out is if you did walk out a door, all of the doors were locked except for like one of the very front like main entrance doors, so you would be forced to walk by the office, and at least that's what I remember.
Mhm.
And it just is, that's so like, I mean, I guess
Disturbing.
if you have to control 5,000 people, that I mean then okay, but also maybe if those measures are needed, don't have 5,000 people crammed in one place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and they had that entrance to the senior parking lot that had a gate on it, and they would lock it after school started. So you couldn't even drive in
oh, that's
unless you were
right.
driving in on like through the front, which is like,
Yeah. Ugh.
why?
It's so dystopian.
It is.
Like think back on it. So
I imagine it's only worse now too. I bet they have like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the front doors are locked all the time.
I was thinking about that the other day, not to expand on this tangent, but like, obviously there was violence in school when we were, but that was what, almost 11 years ago. And like people that had graduated would come visit teachers all the time. There's no way they're letting people do that now. Just like walk in there.
Well, the
Absolutely
VT,
not.
the Virginia Tech shooting happened while we were in, was that seventh
Yeah,
grade? I think.
I think so. It was early on.
Yeah, and then the school would just like lock down and all the doors would close and it was like, oh my god, it was like fucking terrifying. Like I remember one time being in my locker and like jamming myself in there. I'm like, here we go, like we're all gonna die. And
Yeah.
everybody's screaming. Jesus Christ. Ugh.
I'm gonna take some deep breaths over here. I was trying to think back on, different high school things. I'm like, overall in all, like it wasn't that bad. But then we start we start talking about it. It's like, nah, it was bad.
Well, it was funny. I was at my boyfriend's parents' house the other day, and he went to if we're calling our school LB, then he went to WS. And I remember WS had a bomb threat, and we all got evacuated from our school too at like 10 a.m. Do you guys remember that? They were like, okay, everybody get on the bus. You're all going home. You remember that?
Vaguely.
I
I'm sure we were
actually.
like thrilled and
Oh,
just
it
so
was great.
excited about it. But
I did
I
have a
probably went to
minor
Taco Bell.
I definitely had a minor panic attack because it was a different bus driver taking a different route, and I was like, I don't know where we're going, but we're going somewhere.
Oh my god, the fucking school buses. That's another thing.
Pain.
I always just ended up like walking the mile home until I got my driver's license or like a partner who could drive me or my
Yeah.
brother. Like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah, there's a very clear distinction when looking back on high school of before and after we could drive.
Yeah.
Um, After we could drive, I mean, things were just infinitely better after that. That one little, I guess it's not little, it's a big deal, but like that additional ounce of freedom that you have really just made a huge, huge difference. It's hard for me to remember parts of high school that happened, honestly, like not to get sappy, but before the three of us got really close. I mean, like junior,
Yeah.
senior year, because everything before it just is, I don't know. I guess looking back on it, I know some like major standout things that happened, but it was just kind of like cycling through other friend groups and not being miserable, but also not being like super happy. But then like finally, whenever it clicks and you find your people, then it's like, oh, okay. You know,
Yeah.
it really that makes such a huge difference. So I'm not sure if that was similar for you guys or not, but just when I was looking back on
Absolutely.
all of this, it was like, oh man, that's when I think of high school, I think of like of us. So
Hmm.
Yeah. I remember meeting Beth so vividly. I don't know why. Like I can picture you in Miss Mayer's math class, like in full like soccer get up,
yeah.
and you just be like, I like soccer. That class was so ridiculous. Um, we tortured that poor teacher. All that whole class
Yeah.
tortured the hell out of her
Yeah. And wasn't it third period? So it was every
every
day.
day, every day.
That poor woman.
Was it but I remember Hayden like
Hmm.
whispering to everybody being like, hey, at 10:45 everybody start coughing. And
Yep.
this poor woman would be teaching, and then all of a sudden everyone's like and she was like, I don't know what's going on here,
The
but
like the oldest trick in the book. Yeah, and I remember I was such a goody two shoes in high school and middle school that I never wanted to do like that's as far as I pushed it, was like
Yeah.
cough whenever this one guy was like, okay, I got everyone to cough at the same time.
I remember somebody in that class, I was sitting at a table with two boys, and they asked me my shoe size, and I said like 9 or something, even though I'm more like an 8.5. And they started like giggling, and they're like, "Oh, that's the size of your vagina." And I don't remember much else from that class except getting in trouble for passing notes and now the coughing. So I'm glad you told that one. But like that's
What
my
does that
memory.
even mean?
It's just like boys not understanding like anything.
oh my
Like I can't
god.
tell you. I think I can. It was like 2 or 3 boys from like middle school to high school asking me if girls pooped.
Answer's always no. Absolutely not. Idiot.
We're like owls.
We cough up pellets.
Oh my god.
Oh, wow. That got me. That was funny.
Size of your vagina.
So ridiculous. I guess another thing that, like, thinking about least favorite high school things, the social politics of everything and just the social dynamic of I don't know. That was definitely something noticeable. I was never someone who was like striving to be quote unquote popular, but it happened several times to me. I guess this is kind of blending into middle school too, but I would become friends with girls and that is something that they cared about. And so they would like ditch me or drop me and like just to be able to keep climbing the ladder, so to speak, as far as like popularity went. And
Mhm.
it was so I feel like the size of our school made it so much worse because you were forced to be clicky because it was just there were just so many people. I don't know. But that was always like, I don't know. Nothing like really awful ever happened to me. It's just like I remember that being something that was really challenging, which I guess is true of like any high school, but particularly with just the size of ours, I think just made it so much worse.
Yeah, I feel like there's very clear I feel like there's very clear tiers of popularity.
Hmm.
It's not very black and white. You have like the popular hotties, and then you have like the
I just got
popular
your picture,
smarty pants.
Krista. Sorry.
That's the popular hottie right
All
there.
right.
Hello.
That
Just,
picture.
sorry, I'm sorry. You have the popular hotties.
We have the popular hotties, and then you have like the popular smart kids that were in like
Mhm.
GT and stuff.
Oh yeah. And they were their own. Like you had to like I feel like if you tried to be friends with the GT kids, like gifted and talented, by the way,
Yes, yes.
there's different schools will like call that different
And
things.
then there's the rest of us.
Right, yeah. Yeah. The
The C
slobs.
tiers, the
Yeah.
C tier celebrities.
Yeah.
But I feel like not just me, maybe all of us. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know. But like when I look back, I feel like we kind of floated around. Like I had a few
Hmm.
friends here and there. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some popular kid that went to school with us is listening, and they're like, "You are a fucking loser." Like I don't know what you're talking about, but
You could never.
you could never. Nice try. I don't know. Like I never like we had our group of friends. Beth was cool with like all the hot stoners, so that was very helpful. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we just kind of floated and then had friends here and there.
No, that's so spot on. Earlier, I was thinking one of my questions was like, okay, if we're a 90s, early 2000s teen movie or sitcom like Freaks and Geeks or I don't know, just anything, like what group would we be in? And like, I don't know if this is just like narcissism, but like I feel like we fit in with sort of like that general archetype of like the main protagonist who doesn't quite like fit into these circles but learns to
Yeah,
be like their
Yeah.
own person.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I wonder if everyone feels that way about
right?
themselves when they reflect on it because it I just don't know if like the hot popular people were aware. I'm sure that they were to an extent that they were the hot popular people, but it was almost like yeah, I think that that's definitely true. And for myself personally, I just have always been a personality where I have um a few like very close friends. So I dive deep on
yeah,
friendships. So it's very much like quality over quantity for me. I think that it really, yeah, just like cycling through. I cycled through a lot of people,
yeah,
which sounds bad.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's not
No,
like
it's
I mean, because
true.
we all
There
like,
were so many.
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
There are just like different eras of like high school and who you were close with at the time and that depended on so many different things like what
classes.
yeah yeah but I feel like we really like we hit our stride once all of us were like oh man we do not care like
Yeah,
we just want to hang out with each other like remember especially senior year I guess the class before us for some weird reason was like remarkably tightly knit their senior year so then when it was our turn I just feel like that people got so sentimental and nostalgic and wanted us all to be close. But I was like, or all of us were like, are you kidding me? Like, we didn't go to our senior picture, like or like the class picture. We were like, I think we actually literally went to Taco Bell or like 7-Eleven or something
yeah.
for like fuck this. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not going to pretend to all be one big happy family when you like most of you don't even know my name.
Right.
So
Like the school reunion.
yeah, that's true.
What
And
a
that's
trip.
another one that was such a fascinating, not like social experiment really, but just like observing the different, you know. And one thing, I'm curious if you guys will agree with this. One thing that I took away from that was the only people that really stayed in their same like clique or tier, if you will, like I mean, obviously none of that matters, but were like the popular kids, like all the like the popular kids all kind of like globbed back together at the
Mhm.
reunion and didn't really talk to anybody else. And then everyone else was just kind of like,
Socializing.
yeah, yeah. And
Being normal.
yeah. So that was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, maybe you guys were just like dicks. I don't know. Like
But
maybe
it's nice to see that like they peaked in high school and like I'm
yeah.
kind of thinking
Yeah.
of one specific person and it's just kind of like I told my little brother this cuz he's struggling with like and like same like bullies and stuff in high school and of course I'm like I don't want to beat children but like I want to scare the crap out of these kids for like bugging my little bro but
Oh yeah.
Oh,
he
I'll beat
asked
them.
me like what did you think of high school and I was like kiddo I was miserable. I hated it. It was probably the worst years of my life. But you know
Yeah.
what? Once you graduate, none of it matters. You have your
Yeah.
friends, and sometimes that changes, but like all of the drama and like all of it goes away and it doesn't matter. And all those people that are like mean or whatever, like that's a reflection of themselves and they're usually peaking right now and the rest of their life's going to be downhill but you're going to do
Mhm.
great things when you grow up or you get out of here or whatever and yeah I hope he understood well I think he did because the kid is so fucking smart he told me he was like well I looked up kids were bullying me and I looked up why they bully and it's because they have things going on at home or because they like feel this way about themselves and I was like holy shit like I
Oh
would just like be a brat back or like, throw hands or something. Like I would never have
Yeah.
thought to,
yeah.
you know,
No, there was no compassion. Like
None.
yeah, there was never that like sense of compassion or let me just being aware of oh you're saying really hurtful things to me or you know but then what is that really saying about you? What's the deeper picture there? Wow, good for him. And
Mhm.
I hope that he did like take that to heart and he's able to just keep sailing through.
Yeah.
And then he's going to see that you're totally right, like everyone has this hindsight whenever they it's I feel like either you have this hindsight or you are one of those people that's like, "Oh, it's the best days or best years of my life and, I just want to go back." And like there's a reason for that, buddy. Cuz like that's that's the best that you had it. That's when you had the most power and you felt the most like in control and on top of your game. And
Now
if
you
that's
do
how you
stand
feel in
up
high
about how
school,
you can't get a date. Sorry. I just had to throw it in there.
oh my God, yeah. Oh man.
It's so funny because Beth, you sent us some questions before, getting on here of like what's your worst memory and what would you change? And I was staring at these notes and just thinking, because like in the moment it feels so heavy and life or death. And looking back on it, it's like, wow, none of that shit matters at all. It's like hard to even pick out. Bullying is a separate thing, but like, popularity and trying to get into college is everything. Like it doesn't matter. I love I love the show Euphoria. I fucking love that show.
I
And a
haven't
lot
seen
of people, oh, you should. But a lot of people hate it because they're like, that show is so dramatic and it's so like over exaggerated. But I love that because that's how it feels. It feels like a huge drama and you're the main character and everyone's out to get you. Everyone's lying. It's so hard at that age with so many other things going on, to remove yourself and be like, hey, it's going to be fine eventually.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I have not seen Euphoria. I got you to just summarize a play-by-play for me because
Took
I
a very
didn't want to
long
watch
time.
the whole thing. But
If anybody else wants a summary, by the way, please hit me up. I'll talk about that show all day long.
but I think that that's very accurate. And I'm it does feel like the things that you're stressed about, that's like all that matters. I journaled all through high school, and there are times in my life when I'm able to go back and read this, like what I wrote down and what I was so upset about. And some days I can really laugh about it, and other days I'm like, ooh man, I need to just it's just like really cringy. And but just being able to give yourself grace while you're going through it, I think is really important. Even just being aware of like, hey, this feels like it's the most important thing in the world, and that my life hinges on, you know, how if so and so looks at me at the locker next to mine tomorrow morning before class, like
Mm-hmm.
that can it's going to feel like super important. And even though that's a little silly, like just that's fine. Just allow yourself to,
It's fine.
yeah, like
Everything's
there's nothing you
fine.
can do. You're all, yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just like it's normal. That's a better
Mhm.
word than fine. It's normal.
Someone just brought up a really good point about pushing to go into college.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nobody really pushed me because I didn't really have, like I said, a plan, so everyone was kind of like whatever. And I remember when you would senior year, you would submit to the school like what colleges you got into, and they'd like post this list in the hallway, and I like did like
Oh,
Oxford,
gross. I
Yale,
forgot about that.
um yeah, and like South Harmon Institute of Technology, which is from that I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was like early 2000s about like this fake college, and the acronym is shit. Um
Yeah.
and they didn't post any of them. Yeah, how did you guys feel about that? What was that experience like? Because like I said, I was just like they were just like fucking whatever.
I, they drill into you, especially once you get into like junior year. They're like, okay, it's getting to be that time where you have to make a permanent life decision, and you have to make, oh, you're only 16, get it together. And it's so drilled in you. And that kind of bleeds out from society. Like, my parents were like, how are you going to go to school if you don't do this? And it's just this cloud that's getting closer and closer. At least I felt that way. And actually, I was talking to my mom not too long ago because I, again, went to Radford for a little bit, and then things happened. So I went home, and talking to my mom 10 years later, she was like, oh, well, I didn't really think you were ready to go to school anyway. And it's like, well, why did we have that conversation when I
Yeah.
was pulling my hair out, crying, worrying about going to school? I mean, it just seems so big and required, and it's really not.
I was very lucky to have my mom as my mom for many reasons, but a huge one is that she was a teacher for the same county that we all went to school in. And she taught elementary school, but still, like from a very early age, like what's the first year that you take SOLs, the like standards of learning exam, like first grade or something?
Probably.
Um, it's like it's absurd,
Mhm.
but she drilled into me from a very early age. The school, like your teacher cares about you doing well on these tests because the school wants you to do well because it makes the school look good.
Mhm.
So all that you have to do is your absolute best. And if you get a bad grade, that's not your fault. That's the system's fault.
Hmm.
Oh, that
Right, I
must have
know,
been
right?
nice.
It
Again,
was.
I was gonna say, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I was am a very intrinsically motivated person. I hate competition, but I also really want to do well and please people. So, um, I still, was trying to get the best grades that I could. That didn't like give me like carte blanche to just like, all right, well then fuck this, I'm just gonna do whatever. But that was a really valuable. I've never forgotten that, and even to the point, I guess whenever you enter high school, when you can start taking AP or IB, the advanced placement classes, because if you get a certain score on the AP exam, then that's like equals one college credit, and they really start shoving all of that down your throat so early, and they make it feel like your entire future is hinging on like how many AP classes you take, how many colleges you apply to. And I took a couple, like I took a few AP courses, but I knew people who were like, I guess some people that I was in classes with would almost get like those AP classes would be snooty to me because they're like, oh, you're only taking two. I have like, I'm
Yeah.
taking five. And it's like, okay, congrats. I bet your life is absolutely miserable. I bet you're up until 1 a.m. like every night trying to do all these projects. And it's just like, for what? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. All of us wind up in the same place anyway. And yeah, like same, like, or similar pressure with the colleges. I remember meeting with my I guess counselor about like, okay, what colleges are you going to apply to a junior or senior year? And there were only three that I really wanted to go to, that I would even consider. So I told her, and she was like, oh, well, I mean, the minimum that everyone's applying to is like five. We gotta, what do you want to do? And I was like, I guess I want to start as a biology major and like see what happens. And she was like, oh, okay. Which like every freaking school has a biology program, pretty much every
Hmm.
single one. So she was like listing off all these other schools for me to go to. And like VCU being one of them that sticks out, which is ironic because now this is where I am. But I was like, I don't want to live in a city that would really make me miserable. I don't want to go to college in a city. And she was like, well, who cares? You're going to be taking classes all the time and you're just going to be inside, like from building to building. You're not going to have time to worry about the environment that you're in. It's all about the school. And I was like,
What is a biology major?
I was just, I was like, okay, cool. Thanks for that. It was not helpful at all. I still am only going to apply to three schools. Sorry if that makes your numbers look bad. I don't
Right.
know. It's such bullshit. I don't know if that rounded out the the
Yes,
question that you asked
absolutely.
earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna see if Krista had something to say, but if not, I got.
It's misery. It's just all misery. It's stupid. Don't do it. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. I mean, even if like, I did do community college for a little bit, which is just like a cesspit of people that are bummed out because they didn't go to school with all their friends. But I realized that hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing school right now, and I just started working and threw myself into work. I've been in management positions. I've been running teams. I My last job, I ran a team of people in the US and overseas all together in Lebanon. And it's just if going to school is what you feel like you should do, absolutely do it. But if you're thinking you don't have to, you don't, you just,
Yeah.
it's all about who you know anyway. So,
Yeah. I really wish there was like less of an emphasis, or at least that more people were more aware of why there was the pressure that there is, because it all has to do with school ratings, numbers, and the funding that they get, that the school gets, or like the funding that the county gets. Like there's so much of that is entwined with statistics about how many of their students end up going to college and which colleges, and SAT scores and crap like that. So
mhm.
I had a very healthy level, although I still, was, like I said earlier, like goody two shoes, did all my homework and didn't like to break rules or anything. I had a very healthy level of like skepticism about where that pressure was coming from, and I didn't really let it get to me too much.
Yeah, my school counselor, which I think counselor is a strong word, and strong, I mean,
It's a
wrong word.
generous term. Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, their agenda was to push college. I think we might have had the same counselor in middle school, and I loved her. I don't remember her name, but she started that like young, like the girls group, and it was like this little positive, like after school I thought you guys were in it.
Oh, what?
And we would do like, oh, I don't know, but like little
That would have been
activity, like
great.
it was great. She was awesome. I loved her, and she was super empathetic. I felt like she was always listening to me. And I had this like relatively traumatic event happen my freshman year of high school. And I go to my counselor, just like a huge mess. And I tell her what happened. And she's like, just totally blows it off. And
Wow.
I just felt so let down. And so I went to my middle school counselor, the one I had before, and I was like, hey, like I need help, and like you're the one I want to talk to. And she like ended up she was like, I'm sorry, I like can't for whatever
Wow.
reason. And so she had to take me back to my counselor, and then I just like never went back there because it was like so fucking pointless.
Little extra seasoning for your drama or trauma.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like now I know like, oh, I'm bipolar, oh, I've had all this trauma my entire life, and to put me in that environment with no support was just like not good. Like I feel like I would have done really well in an alternative school, smaller class loads, more of who are you, you know, what you want to do. Like I loved our senior year of doing the animal sciences class, A, because we got to leave campus and go get lunch, but B, because I was like doing something that I was interested in, which was animals. And yeah, that was so much more valuable than most of the shit that I dealt with at school.
I really hated in high school everything being so regimented and just kind of being forced to be there and do these things, because I had a good opinion of myself. I knew that I was a responsible kid. I knew that I was smart. I knew that I worked hard. So I was like, why are you treating me like I'm a child when I have all this potential and I do so much to just like, I don't know, to have like rules for the sake of just like having everything in order. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, not really tangent, but it's like to do with this. I just had this major flashback. Junior year, my AP English or lit studies teacher, I'm blanking on his name, but he was one that like I feel like half of the girls in school had a crush on him. If you ever were like a bookish or like journalism-ish person at LB, chances are you were just like simping for this man.
Was he the one that had the YouTube channel where he played guitar?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. He kind of was like he kind of like slouched over a little bit. Damn, he was a really great guy. Anyway, all that aside, he was an amazing teacher. But like the first day of class that I had him, he held up a bathroom pass and he was like, "Hey, just so you guys know, per like school protocol, if you have to leave to go to the bathroom, you have to come and ask me permission and take this." It was like, does anyone think that it's odd that any of you have to ask me permission of whether you need to go to the bathroom or like whether you can go to the bathroom? And I remember being just stunned. Like the whole class was like, oh shit, because no one had really introduced that concept to us. Everyone else was always like, hey, you got to follow the rules and just like, you know, silently with your head down. And he was just like, why do you think that is? What gives me more power than you to dictate a decision like that that you can make? Totally has to do with your body. You're like, it was wild. God, he was great. He introduced different literature, like novels and stuff that totally challenged my idea of like religion at the time too, in a really good way. And so now I'm happily agnostic because of that man.
Happily agnostic.
Yeah. He was also really good friends with another one of my favorite teachers, Mr. Schweitzer, who was my AP biology teacher. They would like bike to school together sometimes and stuff.
That's cool. So cute.
I know, so wholesome.
Oh my god.
I hear kids say this now, and I like don't disagree, especially as we're talking about all the different aspects of our school. It's literally like a fucking prison. This is someone who's like done research on incarceration in the United States, and like, holy shit, like you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. You cannot leave the physical space. There's security guards. Like everything about it is just so prison.
Can we talk about the cafeteria? Can we talk about
lunch? Oh, let's talk about
and
how, it's on my list of shit to talk about.
How traumatizing that was. Like if you did not have if you didn't have, it doesn't even matter if you had like one other friend that was in lunch with you like at the same time. If you didn't have enough people to hold a table, and these I think were, how big were the tables? It was like booths for 6 people and tables for like 8 or 10. So if
Mhm.
you didn't have enough people to really like carve out one of those spaces for your group, then you like lunch was just a nightmare.
Yeah, while you guys are skipping off campus to go talk about animals, my sorry ass was just wandering around during lunchtime, like, how miserable am I going to be today?
Fuck.
It was just for senior year, but like it's absolutely devastating. Like I feel like, so at our school, because it was so huge, for middle school there's 2 lunches, for high school there's 3. And I think the earliest one was at like 10:30. Like it was ridiculous.
I'm
And
pretty sure there were 4. It was A and B, and then what? Let's alphabet everybody. C, D, and E.
an
Oh,
E
never
lunch.
mind. Never
Yeah.
mind. You're right. I don't know the alphabet.
But I feel like the first, like, when we would go to an event like a week before school started, where you get your schedule and everyone can hang out.
I
And
have
I feel
stress
like
dreams about that too.
I feel like that's the first thing that would come to my mind is, who do I have lunch with?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
in class it doesn't matter. Half the time the teacher's going to make you sit wherever they make you sit, but lunch, it's a free for all. And like that senior year, oh my god, man, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
My stomach is in knots just honestly just like thinking about it. Because it wasn't just yeah, that was just like a standard. It was just like this relief. It was like what allies do I have in this
Yes.
hellscape no man's land um to be able to just like eat food. And also, guess what? You couldn't leave. Like that's what was I segued into this for me, was that you could not physically leave the cafeteria
Mhm.
during your lunch. It was like 25 minutes, I think, and you just were stuck in there. And even if you had to go to the bathroom,
Mhm.
guards would prevent you from leaving
Yes.
the cafeteria. That's so wild to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. There was the courtyard for seniors, which I always looked older than I actually was, so I sat out there like for as long as I could. But yeah, that's like the one little glimmer of outside that you get, and it's like a privilege
Hmm.
for reserved for one particular class. Yeah, and the food is garbage. Obviously, it's high
Oh
school
yeah.
cafeteria food. I got by an ice cream Snickers.
Mhm. Mhm. I had a soft
Yeah.
pretzel every day, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah. The smiley potatoes were bomb though.
Yeah.
They were
Hey
great.
yo.
I liked them. I have a vivid memory that actually involves another one of your bridesmaids.
Ooh.
Catherine and I were at lunch, and this was like a worst nightmare situation. I don't know, like a rough memory that I have of high school. But she and I were just like trying to eat, and there was all this fear of like, and it was just like 2 of us to a table that was meant for like 8 people or something. And there was all this fear of like, as you know, people are still like filtering out of the lunch lines, they're getting their food, they're trying to look for a place to sit, like, oh my god, is someone going to come over? And there was this group of either basketball or football players, I don't know, some jocks, and they were looking around, and it was so obvious that we had like the last seats available. And instead of being, a human being and coming over and being like, hey, there's no other spots, do you guys mind if we just like sit over here? Nothing. Silence. They just came over. No one even looked at us, and they sat down. And that, I just remember so viscerally how uncomfortable and painful that was, of just like the lack of, really, I'm sure from them it came from like, we're super uncomfortable, we don't know how to handle this, but we know we can get away with this because of like our sheer numbers and like our quote unquote status or whatever.
Mhm.
But just to not be acknowledged and to have your space taken from you like that, just because they can. God, that was so awful. And then, I guess I could have been like, hey, you want to ask? Like, we could be saving these for people, or I could have challenged them back, but I didn't. I just, was so mortified. And then, like, sweet Catherine, too. We just were, like, sitting there trying to, like, have a conversation and eat our food and still not have a terrible time. But it's just so shitty. Like, that was one of the worst. That's a worst memory for me, for sure. It's just like cafeteria dynamics and the stress of lunch and all of that was just so awful. On the plus side, if you had a bunch of friends that had the same lunch as you, it was incredible. But all of that was completely to chance.
And the fights.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But that's fun. That was fun.
Do you guys, Beth, were you with us when somebody, a lovely girl, I'm sure, who shall remain nameless, started fighting with this chick, and then one of the administrators came to break them up, and she decked him right in the mouth? Cassie, do you remember that?
I don't.
Oh, come on, please tell me you remember that.
I believe you.
Oh yeah, no, it's like I can picture it, but I'm not like the big, that big hook, no pun intended. Like I can't envision that one.
Oh my God, I remember. I mean, that was like, you see videos of people fighting, and somebody hits somebody, and everyone's like, "Whoa!" But that was such a like visceral. I never saw that chick again.
Yeah, that
That
makes
was
sense.
the last time I saw her.
Zero tolerance school.
Yeah, for real. That was, if somebody hits you, you have to sit there and take it. You can't defend yourself at LB.
My parents always said I could. They always had my back, which is
yeah.
It's so funny. My again, my partner went to our neighbor high school, and he was basically there they had a massive food fight, and that whole year they like lost all cafeteria privileges, whatever they did have. And I remember one morning, I don't know if they did it on like the morning news or whatever, but everyone was like, okay, look, we know about the situation over there. Don't you even fucking think about it. Like,
yeah.
They gave us a very clear warning, like, do not.
Wait, from on the our school morning news segment.
Uh-huh. They were like, look, we know about what happened. If you even try it.
Okay, we have to talk about the news, but real quick, do you guys remember that day in lunch that Lucas got up and like was like food fight and started throwing food?
Everybody! Yeah, and everyone
nobody.
was cheering. Everyone was cheering him on, but nobody else tried. He was like jumping from table to table and trying to scurry away, and like no one backed him up.
And then like somebody came and like took him away.
I saw that man. I say man. I saw that kid get carried away quite a few times. God love him.
Dude. What a champ.
I hope he's doing very well.
I think about that at least once a month. I'm not gonna lie.
Me too.
Him standing on a table and being like, "Hey, everyone, food fight!"
And everyone just staring at him like, not us, but you go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're cowards, but we admire you.
Okay, so what was the name of the morning news? Do you guys remember?
Welcome to the Morning Brew, where we brew the news just for you.
Fuck.
See, this is great. I was telling Cassie, like, before we started doing this, I was like, I'm a sober old lady now, but I've done so many drugs between high school and now. I can't remember specific things. And Cassie just recites the intro to the morning news.
And I'm the squeaky clean. Like,
so funny.
You guys remember the Pop-Tart?
That's what I was going to bring up.
Yay, good.
Deep throating a Pop-Tart, which was very funny because he didn't know that it was recording. And these were also, that was like our junior or senior year or something, and they were freshmen. But then the next day he had to go back on and issue like a formal apology to everybody. It was like, I understand that my actions were harmful. But like deep throating a Pop-Tart. That's so funny. Also,
bites in
how
your
could
ear.
you even? That Pop-Tarts are huge.
Huge.
Like the fact that he could even do that was just, it was impressive. But it was,
Oh,
I don't know, it
my
was very
face.
funny. There were some other notable moments, but that's the big one that that sticks out. Mostly, I think it was just like people that we didn't like would do the news and we would make fun of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is not a place for that. That's the After Hours podcast.
Yes.
We can just like shit on people that we didn't like from high school. Oh
Oh my
man.
God.
That was so nice after our reunion, because the reunion was a trip. Yeah, just sitting around the table and just like talking
Yeah.
Yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
but also not shit. That was
Mm.
so nice. It was like, wow, I feel like it's like, and I have that with Helen too. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I haven't seen this person in X amount of years. I wonder if it's still going to be the same. And it totally was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I
that was really
I
cool.
cried a lot. We don't have to get into it. This is you want to talk about a fucking tangent, but like especially since Beth, like you left like right after high school, and like you were like, great, this has been wonderful. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Which more power to you, but you, for good reason, kind of poofed, and we were all so close in high school, and it was like this piece was like kind of missing, and
Yeah.
it really and truly, like when I told Cassie, I was like, I'm just gonna reach out to Beth and see if she'll fly across the country to hang out with people that she hated, and see how it
And
goes.
us.
And us, but just see how it goes. And when you were coming, you said you were coming, I cried, and then you came and we cried, and I dropped you off, and Cassie and I cried the whole way back to
Oh my
her
God.
house. And then I
Yeah.
got home and I cried some more. Like it was just so like the most draining. I have our little Polaroid picture of the three of us on my mirror in my vanity. Like it's just so, I feel very full and happy having this back together.
Yeah. I agree. And the next day after the reunion, I was driving home, and I stopped by a friend of mine, Arena. I stopped by to visit her, and she wasn't in our class, so she wasn't at the reunion. And even just like going over there and reflecting on how it had been like the night before, and us just like hanging out till what, like past midnight, just like
Yeah.
continuing to reminisce and stuff. By the time I got to her house, she's also like a massive safe space for me. She's a therapist, she's like Reiki healer, yoga teacher, she's incredible. I like knocked on her door and she was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I was just like sobbing again. And I was like, "No, no, it's good, it's good." She's like, "What happened at the reunion?" And I'm like, "We saw Beth. Everything's really good."
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And that was just like perfect proof of just the real ones are always going to be, you're never going to lose them ever. And you'll always be able to really pick up right where you left off. That's something that I had to learn all through high school, like trying to bring it back a little bit, is I gave a ton of my emotional energy to people that did not reciprocate it.
Mhm.
And I definitely was, I feel like, probably taken advantage of a little bit in several other friendships that obviously have fizzled out, like they're no longer a thing. And it's unfortunate, but you just have to kind of go through those motions and it's like trial and error, figure out who your people really are. But then once you have them, and it's truly like a lifetime thing. I mean, I would endure high school again in a second if it meant like that. Oh, this is so sappy. If it meant that like the three of us could find each other and be together and blah blah blah.
Blah blah.
Sap sap sap.
Blah, 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 blah.
But also I don't want to do high school ever again.
No.
That would be horrible.
I already do it in my dreams.
Yeah.
More than enough.
Mm-hmm.
So what got us through high school? Obviously each other. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Something
That's-
more specific than just the broad statement of each other. Passing notes, writing notes to one another, I think was like, that was such a highlight. And I don't know if you know this, but Krista and I we kept Krista, I don't know where yours are,
I
but
don't either. They're
okay,
somewhere.
they're somewhere. I've seen them once. I know that they exist, but I kept every single note that I got from her, from you, from people that I'm not even friends with anymore. Like, and I have them archived, like physically in binders, broken up by high school year, and Krista has them currently. But because I brought them over and I was like, you got to see this. We have to go through these.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and that was so, I mean, like your whole day could just suck, and it could be, a day where you didn't have classes with your friends or whatever. But if we got to see each other for like 5 minutes in the hall or less and just like pass a note that we had like scribbled down to the other person like in the class before, that would just like make my entire day. Just those little moments of connection when we were just so forced to go through this system and, in an environment that didn't really foster a whole lot of connection,
Yeah.
was really important. Also going to 7-Eleven and Taco Bell and Subway and
Yeah.
all of our after school adventures too.
I think one of the most liberating things for me was senior year when I realized, oh, they can't physically stop you from leaving. Like somebody pointed that out to me once, and I was like, oh, if I had known that, I probably would have skipped school a lot more. But it just felt less, I don't know, like a prison. Like I don't remember like really skipping that much, but like, I don't know. I remember that, which is kind of like sad that's like
Yeah.
one of the things that came to mind, but yeah.
What got you through? Getting out. I think the only time I ever skipped school was once a year for the art show because I just told everybody I was allowed to do it, and I was definitely not. And thankfully, you, Beth, would have a little booth every year, so I just
Yes.
sit there.
I saw a picture. It was in your scrapbook that you made us. There's a picture of you, me, and Helen making like the most outrageous face possible at a booth at the art show. And yeah, that was the only time I think that I ever skipped a class ever.
Mhm.
And I remember like thinking that I had to like, oh, I have to go back. And you're like, no, just stay 5 more minutes. It's fine. Um, and that was so much fun. Just yeah, that freedom of like, oh yeah, no one's physically dragging me anywhere and locking me in a classroom and forcing me to sit here. It's just this false, or not really false, but just this projected idea of authority that
Mhm.
kept so many of us in line. And once you realize, oh, this is just like this, I don't know, fog, and I can just walk right through it. This isn't an actual barrier to me. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I
I
love when
definitely
those pop up on my memories, like going through the photos and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a piece of advice I would give myself if I was, if I could go back and talk to my high school self. I would say so many things, but one of them really would be like, it's just skip. Just like relax. Don't
Yeah.
don't worry about this shit too much. It'll be so much more valuable to you to have those like bonding moments and memories with your friends than it is to like sit through a couple of classes where you can just like do the makeup work for anyway, like, and if you get a detention, then like whatever.
Oh, detention.
Yeah.
Detention.
Mhm.
I got detention
no.
twice,
Yeah.
and both for hilarious reasons. I'm trying to. The first time was when I was in Mr. Moran's class, and I made the fucking computer say, "Y'all want some pancakes?" in a Jamaican accent. I got detention for that, and I'm pretty sure I cried when he told me I got it. That's joking. And then the second time was when I was parked on OBL in the beginning of the day and smoked a cigarette with Beth
Mm.
and then went into class and super late. And my teacher was like, "Yeah, you're in detention." Hilarious.
I got casual detention once. Because I just kept being, I know, right? Can you believe it? I was late in the morning for that AP bio. I had it first thing in the morning, and Mr. Schweitzer, when it happened like a certain number of times, he was like, "Hey, do you mind just like hanging around after class for a few minutes? Like at the end of the day, could you just come back here and like help me with a few things?" He was never like, "You have detention because X, Y, and Z," but it was just this casual little punishment. And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." I guess I fully could have been like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
come and sharpen your pencils," which is literally what I had to do. He was like, "Yeah, why don't you just, you've been late a few times. Why don't you just like swing by at the end of the day for like 15 minutes and then you can go home?"
That's nice.
Well, yeah, it's nice, but also it's like ridiculous that I did that. That I was like, "Oh yeah, meet you back here at 2:30." Like, could have just gone.
Yeah.
My senior year, I had algebra first thing in the morning, and I would always roll in late with my McDonald's sweet tea,
Hmm.
um, like every day without fail. And then after X amount of, and I would always write some stupid, ridiculous reason why I was late, like elephant in the hallway, or just something stupid. And then after X amount, I would get detention. But after like a couple of them, I'd come in, do my homework, be like, hey, I have to leave at X time for work. And I would like do a bunch of cleaning chores and then be like, all right, what else do you have for me? And he
Hmm.
would be like, oh, I don't have anything. I guess you can go draw or something. So I would just like doodle and stuff, and he'd be like, all right, you can just go. And I think he just like gave up.
Yeah,
Yeah, which was
whatever.
cool.
Well, they actually changed the end time for Fairfax County now. We had to be there. First class started at 7:25, and I think now they're doing 8 o'clock, something like that. Like
Nice.
it's so much easier. It's ridiculous to make teenagers go in that early.
They need more sleep,
Yeah, got lots of homework to do.
which is another fucked up thing.
You
Homework.
know, it is. It's. I was thinking about the advice I would give myself, and I think just do your fucking homework would be one of them. But I mean, the workload is also ridiculous. So, who fucking knows? But do some of it.
I definitely would not have changed. I mean, I'm looking back very happy with the choices that I made for how I spent my time like outside of school and like keeping up with homework and stuff. But that being said, I also have like a very neurotypical brain, and the school system was like structured in a way that was fine for me, like to adapt
Yeah.
to. But my partner is like, he has ADHD and was diagnosed when he was, I think, like 8 or 9. And yeah, it's just, I think with like what you were saying earlier, Beth, about you would have benefited from some sort of like alternative like system, I guess, that would have been more catered to, like, it's not like you're going to be doing less work, like, quote unquote, but it's just like presented to you in a different way that actually works for the way that your brain works. And I think that that's something that hopefully will continue to change more. I don't know, like, just I don't know what it's like these days. Hopefully that's something that it, like, adjusts in the future, because it's just so ridiculous to have all of those expectations and deadlines and stuff shoved onto you as a high schooler. Because then the whole thing, like a big point that they make is, well, it's so you're ready for college. And then it's like, okay, well, can I just do this when I go to college? Like, if it's really going to be that bad. And a lot of times it was like less structured in college, at least in my experience. You were given so much more autonomy and trust and like freedom of, here's what you have to do. It's up to you if you do it or not. That's all. I
Mhm.
just feel like there's way more pressure
Yeah.
for high schoolers.
I feel like this is a good segue to an action step. And this episode's going to come out the beginning of May, which means it's election time. I know there are a bunch of positions open on my local school boards for the school district. I live in a very conservative area, and a lot of them are hateful bigots, like not even exaggerating, like very anti-LGBTQ, like we can't use pronouns in school, not understanding what pronouns are, being very anti any kind of flags, to the point where in all the local groups, comments are turned off for political posts.
Oh my
Um,
God.
it's wild. So luckily I found a group through networking with like-minded people, because I found one group that's like super conservative that's posting all of their endorsements for who to vote for, so I know who not to vote for. But
Right.
I also found this local group that's like specifically directed at like, these are the candidates who are promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I found that resource, but I encourage everybody to vote, you know, even if you don't have kids, even if you don't have any sort of relationship with a school board,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to those candidates, because that's going to be impacting how our children are learning, what their learning environment is going to be like. So look into that. You know, there's local resources wherever you are. It's just going to depend. Just do some Googling, look at Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will literally change the future by making
Yeah.
these decisions.
Yeah. I didn't even plan for that to happen in this episode. That just came naturally. So pretty stoked. Cassie, your hair looks amazing. You look like Ariel.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to touch it.
Noted.
For all the listeners out there, just trust her. It looks great.
And you guys kind of did the advice thing. That was so organic. This has been one of the best interviews. Like, it's gonna be so easy to edit. I'm so excited.
Yay.
Yeah.
If anything, you can like edit in stuff to, you know, like sound effects and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have anything to take out.
Think of
Oh my
that
gosh.
episode of It's Always Sunny where they start adding laser noises in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I'll add laugh tracks even though we're already laughing.
Yeah.
I fucking hate laugh tracks.
I know. Becoming aware of them has really ruined rewatching certain shows for me.
Yeah.
Do it.
Can you imagine if The Office had a laugh track?
Oh God. Would not be anywhere near as good.
That'd be devastating.
The silence is what gets me, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else, you guys? Any other stories or anything you wanted to touch on?
I mean, if anybody's listening that's in high school, I swear on everything, it'll be fine. It really will. And again, I said this earlier, but literally nothing that I planned worked out the way I planned. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like really taking it back to your one of your first questions, Beth, about would like high school me be surprised about where I am now? I have always been so excited for this period of my life, like post-education, just having my own independence to create the life that I want to live makes me happy and fulfilled. And that's like 100% accurate. Like this is the best period of my life, hands down, thus far. And yeah, to anyone who is wondering if like any of this like bullshit that they're having to sit through every day is going to lead somewhere good or is going to be worth it or eventually end, you know, we're here to tell you that it absolutely will. And someday you're going to be able to just go to the bathroom whenever you want without asking anybody, and just spend your time doing things that really like brings you joy and fulfillment and makes you happy. So
Yes.
And if you're lucky, you'll be able to come out the other side with some friends that really are, I mean, that just run so deep that they're really like family. And that's going to be the silver lining that you look back on and can hang on to. And then all of you can be laughing on a podcast someday about how you drove a math teacher crazy years and years ago.
I recently heard on a podcast this really good advice. Don't do what you love, do what you are. So, you know, you might be in love with art, but maybe at your core, and I'm using myself as an example right now, your empathy is your strongest asset, and you can use that to do good and work with people. You know, you don't have to be good at math. Turns out you have a learning disability. So, you know, you're not stupid like your ninth grade math teacher told you are. Another great memory from high school. But you can use what you have to do good and do things that make you feel fulfilled. And it's not your title of what your job is. It's not even your pay. It's, are you doing what makes you feel fulfilled? And the answer is yes, I love what I do. And I think that's good advice for kids who are, or young adults that are, ending their time in high school and moving on, which is why I don't recommend you go to college, maybe community college if you really want to and do your gen eds, but work and figure out who you are. And AmeriCorps pays shit, but I wish I had done it earlier because it helped me figure out who I am, and I got to do all these different trainings and learning opportunities, and yeah, it was such a wonderful experience, again, except for the pay, to figure out who I am. So yeah, I feel like we all have really good advice. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good way to end it. So proud of us.
Oh my god, dude, seriously, this has been one of the best interviews. Like,
We have to do it again.
Yeah.
yes, dude, we didn't even cover everything on my list, so yeah, like we totally can.
We can absolutely make it a part 2. That would be and we can also make that part a little more spicy.
Ooh,
yeah.
spicy.
Yeah.
More like actual talking shit. But this was a good like first dive
It's a
in.
taste. It's a taste.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, ladies.
Yay. Love
Thank
you.
so much. Love you.
That's a wrap for this month's episode of Talking Shit About. We'll be back next month with a music-related topic. And then, like I said, hopefully I can wrangle my last 2 bridesmaids into doing interviews. So we'll have a nice variety of topics. If you want to get a hold of me and request to be on the show or suggest a topic or just vent, you can email me at killizabeth.pod@gmail.com. KILLIZABETH.pod@gmail.com. All right, see you next month.